Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LeanTossup Call of Duty League podcast. My name is Robert, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, CDLMetrics. Major 3, Week 3, last week of Major 3. This week, obviously, is Easter, but next week is the Major. What do you think going into this week?
Yeah, excited to talk COD this week. A lot to be decided in terms of winner's bracket versus loser's bracket starts for a lot of these teams. I think it's fair to say we're going to have a lot of ties in terms of same record for seeding. So we'll see how all those ties shake out. But a lot of good matches coming up this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 10 total, I think. So yeah, excited to see how they all play out and how we get the Major 3 bracket set for next week.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where we go from here on this. So model versus markets, you and I actually both had very good weeks. You went 3-0, I went 2-1. I really shouldn't have gone against the model in Thieves. I should have just not done that. But yeah, no, other than that, though, we had a very good week overall. So that was pretty good. And the combined model plays as well. When one has a good match, the other one has good and does well. And yeah, we had the same thing. Miami did not win the control. Oh no. Saturday was a not so great for the combined model plays, but then Sunday, huge comeback on Sunday on that too. So yeah, really good week there for us on that front. So in terms of league news, and I gotta say, I got to take a little bit of a victory lap on this one. I did call this. Remember last week, I said straight up here, it would be really funny if Vegas's first win in the CDL was against Optic Texas, and you're like, yeah, that would be pretty funny. And here we are 1 week later. Yeah, what an insane... I can't even. This is absolutely insane. What did you think when you saw this?
Yeah, I watched the entirety of this match. I was able to catch everything on Friday and most of Saturday's stuff and a little bit of Sunday. But this one I watched because I was very curious to see how Pred looked against his old team. And we knew Falcons weren't the old Falcons, that they would be competitive. And we had a little sneaky feeling last week that, hey, Optic could lose this, as weird as it could be. And yeah, my first thought was like, this wasn't even close. Like, it was shockingly easy for Vegas, I would say. Like, the hard points were dominant for Vegas Falcons. You can see on the bottom there, won by 75 in map 1 on Vault and doubled them up on Skyline of all maps, like the mixy, crazy map. You only get to 112 if you're Optic. That's crazy. And then map 2 and map 3 were both very close, so you expect those teams to split them. But again, you can make an argument like if Vegas figure out their search and win that round 11 versus Optic, this might have been a 3-0. It was really that comfortable of a win for Vegas. So I loved it. I'm not a big Optic fan. I like when they're good because I think it generates a lot of interest in the league, and when the league is highly watched, I think that's healthy for the scene overall. But yeah, Vegas, I loved that the broadcast did this like confetti that popped on the screen as soon as they won. All the guys on the Falcons were going crazy. A lot of tweets immediately followed that were very funny. And yeah, deserved for Vegas. I'm glad they pivoted. I think they maybe should have done it earlier in the season. I think everyone thinks they probably should have done a move like this a couple months ago maybe, but props to them for finally coming through on that. And yeah, this is your reward. Like you beat a pretty solid Optic team, and yeah, now all of a sudden you're not dead you're not showing up to every match with a sub 5% chance to win. You're now a competitive team at least. Yeah, just a crazy match. It wasn't the biggest upset in the world when you talk about what their odds were to win this series. I remember last year we talked about an LAG versus FaZe game where the odds that LAG won that were just astronomical. I want to say they were like 25-1 to win that series a year ago, whenever that was. Falcons were much more live to win this according to the market. Still a huge upset in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, Falcons, we've got to take them seriously moving forward, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, again, and again, to be clear, Vegas is not, we will say they're a competitive team. They're not one of the best teams, but they are a competitive team. They were not a competitive team before. They were a distant 12th. Now you can make the argument that they're either 12th or 11th or something like that. Maybe even 10th because they beat Optic here. But that's the point here, right? Is the fact that okay, they're still not great, but the counter argument to that is okay, what the heck is with Optic here? This was a team that won champs last year. They had to go through a bunch of team changes, and okay, yeah, whatever you want to say, it's a Pred revenge game, blah 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 blah, whatever, fine. But this should not be happening, guys. It's so weird what's happening with this Optic team. And they might blow up the entire team in the offseason, save Shotzi, right? With the exception of Shotzi and Dashi, like everything else could go. But the thing is, to be fair, you did that already. Like Hook replaced Pred, Skies replaced Kenny. What else? I don't know what the problem with this team is. I don't know what the issue is, but this team is just not good. I don't know if it's the current team or what it is. It's very concerning if you're an Optic fan, or rather the ownership of Optic. I don't even know what you do to fix this.
Yeah, it is tricky. I think we've read Optic pretty well for most of the season. Their journey throughout this year has been insane when you think about where they started the year. Obviously, yeah, they won champs last year. They were a great team, but they had their ups and downs last year as well. But for the most part, it was a good season for Optic, if not a great season. And then you come into this year and they look great to start things, and then ever since Major 1, it's been very up and down, and their lows have been just about as worse as anyone in the league. They had that stretch where they couldn't win a map for like a month straight. It was crazy, and they played some good teams in that stretch, but they played some teams that you expect them to at least be competitive against, and yeah, finally had enough, made the roster move. It looked promising after the first week. They went 2-0, but again, last week we mentioned, that's great they went 2-0, maybe they're on the right track with this putting Skies in and repairing Hook with Shotzi. But it was more of just the market seemed to think that Optic was all the way back already after 2 matches. And we were more on the side of, I don't know if they're all the way back. I think they have rebounded from where they were, but I don't know if you can comfortably say like they belong in the tier with Vancouver and Toronto and Carolina to some extent, like those next best teams outside of FaZe and Thieves. And I think this is proof of that. This loss to Falcons, but they also lost 3-1 to Miami, who, like, Miami are very good right now. They've hit a really nice hot stretch, but somewhat uncompetitive in that series as well the day prior to this. So, yeah, Optic, I think, are just going to be one of those teams for the rest of the season where I wouldn't be surprised if they come out against good teams and show up and maybe pull off some upsets and make it look easy in the process. But I'm not going to be surprised if we have series like what we saw last weekend, where maybe they get paired up against a team that we think is inferior and Optic really struggle to close out the series. I just think they're going to be inconsistent with how much has gone on this season. It's just not a stable situation, and that worries me. So hopefully the longer that this lineup is together for Optic, like the more reps they get, the more comfortable they'll get. They'll figure out what strategies they prefer in every game mode. And just that familiarity, I think, is good. Like, I think that gets underappreciated in Call of Duty, is just when you can keep a core together from year to year, that's huge, because there's so many teams that are cycling through players every couple of weeks or months. And it is just, you're relearning how to play the game with your new teammates if you're doing that. Yeah, we'll talk about Optic in their matches later, but yeah, just a fascinating result that I thought we needed to touch on for a little while here.
Agreed. It is crazy what happened there. And I'm going to have to rewatch this game. I didn't get to see most of it, but I want to rewatch it just for the history. Carolina, they've dropped Vivid and they've added Rex. I don't know. Maybe this could be something that helps them. I don't know. They played a very competitive game against Seattle. Maybe they just thought we should have had that one. If we were maybe without Vivid, we would have been there. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, a little surprising. Carolina have been a good team all season. They've kept their 4 through the entire season, like ever since December. It's been these 4 players, and they've been a good team. And I just talked about, like, familiarity within your team is good, and I think that shows up in a team like Ravens, where we feel good about their odds to make champs. We think they can maybe even go on a run. Do they have the firepower to take out Thieves or FaZe? Maybe not. But Vancouver, they were very competitive against. Obviously, the reverse sweep hurts, but it's still a good showing to at least push that to a Game 5 and make Vancouver really work for it. But then they got a series win right after that, if I'm not mistaken. Or before that, I suppose. Yeah, it was their win against Rocker. It was a Game 5, Round 11, so pretty close overall. Their Game 4 was also close. So it took them a lot just to get over the hump versus Rocker, who are an okay team. They've definitely gone through their struggles. But yeah, a little surprising. I think it was after that Rocker series where the desk was interviewing TJ, and he made some comment like, we're good, our lineup is good. I want to say one of the interviewers was asking them about missing out on Kenny or something like that, because there were so many players that were moving teams, and Carolina were very much, we're good with what we got. And TJ echoed that sentiment last weekend, only for news to drop a few days later that they are getting rid of Vivid and no immediate replacement. The rumor, very strong rumor, is that Rex will come in from Challengers and take Vivid's spot. And we'll see how it works out. Rex is a good Challengers player. Vivid he's one of those classic, when he's going off, the team looks really good, and when he's struggling, it looks painful at times. But I respect Vivid. Like, Vivid is a good player. I wouldn't be surprised if some other team picks him up that maybe could use his services. But yeah, just a little curious. Maybe they take a step back and search and destroy, which is a big deal for Royal Ravens because they're such a good search team. You insert someone new into the lineup, maybe they can keep that going, or maybe it takes Rex or whoever it will be some time to play along with those other Ravens players in that specific mode. But maybe they think that they can get a boost in hardpoint because that they maybe could use one of those as well. So yeah, just curious to see how that shakes out. If it is Rex, I'm sure we'll get confirmation on that probably tomorrow, if not Thursday. So yeah, just keep your ears out for that and see what Ravens announce. But at the end of the day, I think Ravens are still going to be a good team even with this roster move. I don't think they're gaining a ton. I don't think they're losing a ton. I think they'll stabilize where they are at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with that. Major 2 qualifiers expected wins. So we are still expecting Thieves to be the number 1 seed, which is funny because FaZe is like getting killed out there, but they only have, I think, 2 wins. Or no, they only have the 1 win. They only have the 1 win, but they do have 2 games this week, so they should be able to pull off roughly 2 wins there. But yeah, you've got Thieves up there at the top, Miami, Toronto, Vancouver, and then you've got Boston and FaZe, Carolina, and then Texas still, because they had those 2 early wins, they're still in there. But then you've got Cloud9, Minnesota, Vegas, and LAG there at the very bottom. So that's your expected wins, and mine breaks out slightly differently. I actually have Miami slightly more favored, but to be fair though, I believe if FaZe and Thieves and Miami both win out, do we know who would get the tiebreaker or not?
I don't know, because they did not play each other. But if Miami win out, they're 5-0, and if Thieves win out, they're 4-1. So Miami are in the driver's seat to get the 1 seed. They're the only undefeated team left. But like your model shows it, and my model shows it, like there are, I think you can say 4 teams right at the top that all could be tied with each other at the end of the day. I don't think any of them play each other. I guess Toronto and Miami play each other, so that will force someone to lose a tiebreaker. Although if Toronto win, then they have Miami matched and they have the tiebreaker over them. But either way, this shakes out. Like the 1 seed is going to be a tight race going into this last week of qualifiers. I did want to point out, for both of our expected wins models, our top 4 teams are just shuffled in a different order. You have Miami 1, Thieves 2, Surge 3, and Ultra 4. And mine are just jumbled up in a different order. I think, yeah, Thieves 1, and then the other 3 teams are intermixed there. But our 5 through 12 is the exact same order throughout. So I just thought that was funny to see. So we do expect, of those teams that are near that cut line, Cloud9 and Minnesota probably stay on the wrong side of it. They definitely have enough in the tank to get above it, but at least right now, and unless maybe Vegas keep things going and they shock the world and win another series, however it shakes out, there are going to be a ton of ties just because every team is only playing 5 matches for this set of qualifiers and for Major 4. So that's the one thing that we're not huge fans of here, is like the 5 qualifiers doesn't feel like enough, because we could have 3 or 4 teams all tied with a 2-3 record or something, and half of those teams are above the cut line and half of them are below it. and it goes down to a map tiebreakers or head-to-heads or whatever. And I would love to see 7 qualifiers for everything, but for whatever reason, the COD League shorted us on this set and the next set. But yeah, I was pretty surprised to see we had the exact same 5 through 12. But I think it makes sense when you look at where the teams are and what they have left going into this weekend.
Yeah, I agree on that. Match previews, odds via Bet365. Ultra versus Heretics. Speaking of that match, Ultra minus 225 on the money line, Heretics plus 162. Ultra minus 1.5 plus 120, Heretics plus 1.5 minus 163. Ultra minus 125 in the hard point, minus 200 in the search, and minus 188 in the control. Yeah, I mean, my model likes Toronto here. It views Toronto as a pretty decent favorite in this matchup. It really likes the Toronto, even kind of likes the Toronto minus 1.5 actually, but I will say that we've been rolling with Miami, and they're pretty good. So I don't know exactly how much I want to jump in front of the Miami train here. What are your thoughts on this one? I kind of want to stay away from this one and see.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. My model is very similar to yours. We're a little different in terms of map 1 versus map 3, but they're both pointing us in the Toronto direction. And I don't hate it because Toronto have been fairly impressive to start this Major 3 qualifier period. Wins over FaZe and Thieves. That is, just saying that, it's like very impressive. They did drop their series against Breach, but we know Breach have been playing a lot better lately, so not the worst loss in the world. Miami 3-0, very good start. Not something we expected, but Super coming into the lineup, he looks like he belongs. He has really elevated this team. And yeah, I at first was like, yeah, Ultra price seems good. It actually dropped from earlier this morning to this afternoon. I want to say Toronto was minus 250 or maybe minus 275 money line, and now they're down to minus 225. So maybe some pushback, people liking what they're seeing from Miami, and I get it. Miami look great as well. So this is just a match I want to watch and see how it shakes out. I think, yeah, you can just make a case for either team. They're both relatively hot right now. We've seen it longer for Toronto. Like throughout the year, they've been pretty consistently good. Right now, they seem to be elevating their play. And Miami, it's tough with them because for most of the season, they were an okay team, and now all of a sudden they look great once they make the roster move. So this will be a very good match in terms of trying to like figure out, are these teams on the same playing field? Does it go long? Are the maps close? If so, that's a really big win for Miami. Or can Toronto kind of assert themselves as, no, we've been doing this all year. We are the better team. We'll take you out. So I tend to think Toronto will win this. I like that they've been good all year. I think Miami are good. That like Miami have been flying under the radar for a lot of the year, and now you make one change and it looks really good. It does remind you a little bit of Vancouver Surge when Neptune came in. Like, they were an okay team. You put in one guy, they look completely different. Why couldn't they beat a Toronto Ultra team? So, yeah, one that I'll pay very close attention to. I love that we get this right away on Friday. But, yeah, I am just a little spooked by how hot Miami have been. I think they can push Ultra to the brink here and maybe even win. So, we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah. Next up, Friday, match 2, Boston versus Cloud9, 120 each way. Boston, technically, I guess, is the slight underdog because their 1.5 is minus 275. Cloud9 is minus 1.5 is plus 200, but those are completely interchangeable. This is basically a dead even game. Boston minus 150 in the hard point, Cloud9 minus 125 in the search, and then Cloud9 minus 175 in the control. My model takes a pretty strong position here on Cloud9. My model really likes Cloud9, not just moneyline, but it basically puts the minus 1.5 at 50-50, possibly because it actually thinks Cloud9 should be outright favorites in the hard point, right? It definitely sees like a 1-3-4 path for Cloud9 to get that minus 1.5. Even doesn't hate them so much in the search and destroy. But the thing is, again, the closer that hard point pushes to 50, right, there's a path where maybe you win game 1 and then you win like game 3, maybe 2, maybe you win like lose game 1, win 2, 3, 4. There's different paths like that. My model seems to like that. Your model is ambivalent / taking the other approach. You Boston a little bit here. This is a battle for Cloud9 is just trying to save their season here, hopefully try to get in the winner's bracket. I don't think they can actually, but just get as good a seeding as they possibly can here. What are your thoughts on this one? Are you playing this one? My model leans to playing this one. I think I might take a shot at this one. We'll see.
Yeah, you're right about my model. My model and the market are married to each other, it seems. The only places where there might be value, Boston map 1, maybe a couple percentage points of an edge there. And then it says Cloud9 map 3, although they're very big favorites. But the one thing I will say, these teams are in completely opposite directions. And I'm actually quite surprised to see that they're both minus 120. I'm pretty confident that I would rather, if you're just asking me who wins this series, I would say Breach. And I wouldn't hesitate that much because Breach have looked all right. They beat Toronto, who we know have beat FaZe and beat Thieves. But that's not it. Boston have looked good against pretty much everyone they've played, and their control is improving, which is the big thing with them. Their control for most of the season has been quite horrible. Lately, it's bounced back nicely. And if they're just competitive in map 3s, we know they're already a good hardpoint team, a solid search team. You bring that map 3 up, and that can be the difference maker for a team like Breach. So I'd prefer if my number on Cloud9 map 3 was lower, just based on how these teams are doing. Like Cloud9, yes, they got the win over Rocker. It was very close. It was a reverse sweep. That map 4 was a 4-point win on red card. That is a good indicator that Cloud9 and Minnesota are very comparable teams. And right now, Rocker are not great. I don't like buying into recent performances too much, but I'm just very surprised that like Boston aren't a minus 150 favorite considering what these teams have done lately. And just over the course of the season, like you go back to Major 1 and Boston were the better team than Cloud9. Major 2 comes along, flip that. Boston really struggled. Cloud9 picked it up, specifically in Search and Destroy for them. And now we're at Major 3, and these teams are flip-flopping again, I'd say. I think you take that as a whole, and these teams are both fine. I don't know who's going to win, but I'd prefer to put my eggs in the basket of the team that is playing well right now, and that's Boston. So if they figured out control to some degree, that's big for them, and signs point to they've figured it out a little bit. Yeah, I much prefer Boston, even though my model is indifferent in this spot. Cloud9 haven't shown me much. I'm glad that they got a win on the board last week, but it took a lot just to get that one against an okay team. Yeah, I strongly prefer Breach here, but we'll see if the prices move. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Boston climb in the odds market as we get closer to Friday.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I'll have to see if I want to play this game or not. This could move a little bit. Like we could get Cloud9 minus 138, and my model is still showing pretty clear value on it. So this might be something I play later on. We'll have to see. Moving on, Friday match 3, the last match on Friday, Thieves versus LAG. Yeah, no surprise with the line here. Thieves minus 6,600 on the money line. LAG plus 11 to 1. Minus 275, minus 175, plus 2.5, plus 125. So basically, the books are basically pricing in a 3-0 here. 1,600 favorites in the hard point, 300 favorites in the search only, and then 1,400 favorites in the control. Yeah, model's pretty much in agreement. My model has some slight value on LEG, pushing that plus 2.5 closer to 50, but like a plus 125 to a plus 100, 25 points of value. It's some value, but I wouldn't write home about that. This could very easily be a 3-0. I've still got I've still got Thieves 75% favorites in pretty much every map here. Slight exception to map 3, slightly less, but again, even getting to a map 4 is going to be a pretty tall climb here for LAG.
Yeah, really tall climb. This is one of the bigger mismatches we've had all season. Yeah, Thieves look pretty solid now. I know they lost that series against Toronto on Sunday night, but LAG, again, I mentioned it last week. What do they show you to like buy into anything right now? Like, you can maybe make a case for their search and destroy. Like, they did beat Boston in around 11 last week, and we know search is up in the air at times, so you get better than 2 to 1 on that. I could see that. So rather than play the plus 2.5, maybe just go on the map 2 money line and get a much, much better price. But yeah, like LAG just don't have a thing to hang their hat on. If I'm an underdog going up against, like if I'm a huge underdog like LAG here, I at least want a map or a mode that I can point to and be like, this is going to be step one of beating LA Thieves. Is we're going to get map one, we're going to veto this, and then we're going to square up on Vault or whatever it would be. And like we can take them out on that. Or if it's a search map, whatever it is. But LAG just don't have anything right now. Like they got the one search win last week and they kept control close. But again, that's a Boston control. That's not great, but better lately. The series before that, they play Surge, and we know what Surge looked like versus Thieves, and none of the maps were close. LAG got beat very easily. And then prior to that, like they squared up against Royal Ravens. They did get a 3-0 control win. Good for them. The hard points were somewhat close as well, but there's nothing that you can point to where it's that is the spot where LAG can pick off a map. I really worry that this is going to be over and done with in like 30 minutes. Thieves need the win if they want to get the 1 seed. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, I just haven't seen enough from LAG yet. So I'm curious to see if the price on this changes as we get closer to Friday. I could, because I don't know who is taking LAG at the prices right now. But yeah, best of luck, LAG. Maybe you can win a search. I don't know about the respawns. It's going to be super, super tough. But I don't know. This is the weird series where like LAG, like they tend to beat Thieves in these for whatever reason. It's just one of those coincidences. So maybe they can find some of that magic, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I agree with that. First match on Saturday, Vancouver versus Cloud9. Vancouver minus 250 on the money line, Cloud9 plus 175, minus 1.5, minus 120, plus 1.5, minus 120. Surge is minus 275 in the hard point, 125 in the search, and minus 150 in the control. So, yeah, my model is, again, pretty high on Cloud9 here. It's weird. My model seems to really like Cloud9. Now, to be fair, it liked them against Minnesota, and they actually did win that game. So, it seems to like them, and it seems to think that this Cloud9 team is definitely not that bad. I think there's definitely some value in the plus 1.5 a little bit. Maybe not so much in the hard point, but in the search and in the control, especially in the control. There's definitely some value on Cloud9 there in some of those pieces. And all you have to do is really just string together like a search and a control and then maybe steal one of the hard points, and all of a sudden you go to game 5 and the minus 120 cashes. What do you think about this Cloud9 team in general? Do you think this team is it a bottom 4 team that like can maybe, again, Minnesota definitely not a top tier team, but Vancouver very clearly is a top tier team. Do you think where do you position them more? Do you think they're more of a bottom 4 team that can beat maybe some teams that are maybe like the 10th to 8th seed or something like that, 10th to 6th? Or do you think this is like a team that's knocking on the door of one of those top 4 teams?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get this answer based on the picks that you have later on in the show, but I tend to think that New York are not a very good team. They had that hot stretch during Major 2 qualifiers and at Major 2 where their search and destroy was just like on another level. Like they were, you could argue, the best search team at that time, and that was getting them through a lot of these series. Their hardpoint and their control was fine as well, not horrible at either. They were solid, but their search was really carrying them, and it was like, okay, they seem to have figured something out there. Lately, I know they got the win against Rocker last weekend, reverse sweep, that's awesome, but the other series they've played so far, like they got blasted by LA Thieves, that happens. Vancouver Surge also got blasted by LA Thieves. Before that, though, Cloud9 played an Optic Texas team that we've already touched on a little bit, very up and down, but they basically no-showed against Optic in that series as well. I don't know. Like, I'm worried if their search isn't there, I don't know if they have enough hardpoint and control firepower to keep them afloat in these series. And I know Vancouver Surge has a very good hardpoint. Their control has been getting better. Their search is just fine. Like, I basically have these teams as 50-50 in search and destroy. Right now, my numbers say it's also a 50-50 in control, but I would maybe bump my Vancouver Surge map 3 number up just a touch. And I think the map 1 numbers are pretty spot on, and I'm pretty close to market in that regard. So, again, just another situation where Cloud9 have scared me lately. Like, they've lost it in search and destroy, which I thought might happen because that game can go hot and cold at times for teams. And they haven't buoyed that with impressive hardpoint performances or control performances. Sometimes it's there. I don't know if it's going to be there against a team like Vancouver Surge. I still very much think that Surge is a solidly built team. Probably third best, fourth best in the league. I think Cloud9 is definitely closer to like 9th or 10th, somewhere in that range. Yeah, I do think there's a gap in these teams. And yeah, taking a Vancouver like -1.5, I don't think is crazy at all. I think it's very realistic that Vancouver get 2 hardpoint wins, and then you just got to hope that one of those map 2, map 3 coin flips goes your way and they can get that -120. So I don't love it, but I don't know. Based on what Cloud9 have done lately, even despite the reverse sweep, I'm going to shy away from them until they show me a little more in hardpoint specifically, but also control.
Yeah, agreed on that. Okay, match 2 on Saturday, Miami versus Minnesota. Miami -150, Minnesota +110. Miami -1.5 +150, Minnesota +1.5 -200. Miami -150 in the hard point, -125 in the search, and then even both ways, -120 each way in the control. Yeah, my model likes Miami money line, doesn't love the -1.5. It definitely sees Miami as winning this through the searches. It actually likes Minnesota in the hard point a little bit. Not a lot. But it does view Minnesota as a slight favorite in the hard point. But not in the... It sees a lot of value on Miami in the search and in the control. Your model, on the other hand, kind of likes Minnesota here. And again, we're trying to figure out where these teams sit, right? Is Miami a top 4 team, or are they just kind of like a middle-of-the-pack team? I think that's the question here.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to mention with this is just, I mentioned in the first series we talked about Miami versus Toronto. Those prices had dropped quite a bit from this morning to this afternoon, where based on the odds, Miami is becoming a better, not a favorite in that, but their odds to win that series apparently are going up against Toronto. This series, these prices have stayed the same, and maybe they will because this is a Saturday match and that other one is a Friday match. But I am, again, a little surprised that Miami aren't a bigger favorite considering what we've seen lately. My model says Rocker should be a favorite, but again, my model goes back to the start of the season. How have these teams looked as a whole from December on? And yeah, Rocker have been a better team throughout the season. And I also think that Rocker aren't as bad as what they've shown the last couple weeks with Kenny. Like, they somewhat are what they've been all year, and that is just like a team that pushes it to the absolute limit. Game 5, round 11, half the time they're going to win those, half the time they're going to lose those, perfectly positioned in the middle of the pack. A lot of those matches lately have not gone their way. I do think it's a somewhat bad luck for Rocker lately. I don't think it's good luck for Miami, though. I think they are deserving of being a -150 favorite in this spot based on the addition of Super and how they've looked. Like, you go out and beat FaZe 3-1, like, you gotta be impressed by that. That was very nice, and I know FaZe have had a little struggles outside of that, but still, you're beating FaZe 3-1. That alone is very impressive. Rocker, I think better days are ahead. I think the Kenny move was still a good one. I think some of these really close maps that aren't going to go their way are. Maybe it comes through in this spot, but man, it is tough to call. I really want to watch these Miami series, see how they shake out. If Miami can split versus Toronto and Minnesota, I'd say that's probably expected. I would think they can at least win one of those. I wouldn't be shocked if Miami come out and beat both of those teams, just based on how they've looked. Would not be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if Miami go 0-2. Like, maybe the super honeymoon which is funny to say, a super honeymoon. It sounds awesome. Maybe that ends this week. Like, maybe teams start to figure out what maps they like to play with Super in the lineup and start vetoing those, or start to figure out his play style a little because we haven't seen him much. I don't know. I'm fascinated to watch this match, though. I think it'd be more fun if Rocker win this and maybe force a really interesting winner's bracket, loser's bracket, tiebreaker scenario with some other teams. But I totally understand why Miami are favorite. I understand where your model is on Miami. But yeah, it's too tough to call. There's so many unknowns going into this with Rocker's bad luck maybe rebounding, but Miami being legit. I don't know. This is one I don't want to forecast. I just want to watch. So I understand being on Miami. I'm just going to chill and enjoy
I think this one
I
should be a
think.
pretty fun one to watch too. I'm on board with that as well. Saturday match 3, another LAG game, another massive line. Toronto minus 1,200 on the money line. LAG plus 600. Toronto minus 2.5 plus 125. LAG plus 2.5 minus 175. Toronto minus 500 on the money line. In the hard point, minus 275 in the search, and minus 334 in the control. Yeah, not much to say here. Our lines are pretty much exactly what the book has here. Again, at this point, we're just like, hey, can LAG get this to a game map 4? And it looks like maybe. Is the official book stance on it? Maybe. Yeah, that seems to be where we're at right now. Basically, we all have every line for Toronto hovering around that 75% mark. I don't have much to bet here. I don't see much. What do you see?
Yeah, I think, yeah, boy. I do think you can make a case maybe LAG can come through in map 3. You're getting a plus 240 price. That's very enticing. And Toronto don't have a control win yet in this qualifier period, despite playing 3 matches. That includes a loss to FaZe. Boston, which that Boston one was that weird one where there were some online connectivity issues. Boston took round 1, and then Toronto just said, we're done. They were already down 2-0 in the series, and they just called it quits. So that one was a little fluky. But again, last week, they go up against Thieves, who are the best control team, but don't come through in that. So it's an 0-3 control record for Ultra, but they've played some very good teams close, and one other match was a little fluky. And LAG, I don't know, like, they do have that 3-0 against Ravens this qualifier period. That's pretty good. We knew Ravens were a good control team, and that new LAG team walked right in and beat them pretty easily. So if I squint my eyes, I can maybe see LAG coming through in that map. But Toronto's hardpoint lately has been awesome. I really struggle to see how LAG are going to win that map 1. And then we know Ultra are a very good search team. They've been a solid search team so far this qualifier period. LAG have that one round 11 win against Boston last weekend, but besides that have looked somewhat lost in search and destroy. So yeah, I think it really just comes down to map 3. Can LAG win that? So if you're interested in taking LAG, I would avoid the plus 2.5 because I think we're going to get to that map 3. LAG is going to be down 0-2. Would you rather have them to win that map at plus 240 or minus 175? Plus 240 easily. That's much, much better. That's where I'm at in this one. Toronto minus 2.5, I think you could take if you're interested in that, and you buy Toronto just being red hot and you're out on LAG. Totally understand that. So I think, if anything, LAG map 3, but if you'd rather take Toronto, the minus 2.5 is at a completely fine price if you're leaning more into the favorite here.
Yeah, I agree with that. Next up, Saturday match 4. Las Vegas versus FaZe minus 2,500 on the money line. Vegas plus 800. FaZe plus 2.5 minus 138. Vegas plus 2.5 plus 100. FaZe is minus 500 in the hard point, minus 400 in the search, and minus 1,000 in the control. And yeah, it's interesting. My model is like weirdly, or at least we're kind of like, yeah, we're on board FaZe here. We're both higher on FaZe. Look at that money line graph. I don't think I've ever seen a graph from us like that, honestly. We're definitely not on board on the plus 2.5 either. Vegas in the hard point, but that's it. That's the line right there. It's like maybe their hard point is okay, but other than that, we're out on them on search. We're out on them on control. Now, that you could make the argument that Vegas is like better than our models are giving them credit for, because again, this is now 3. I think it's 3 matches now. Yes, it's 3 matches now with the new team, and you can make an argument that they're better, and maybe our model is not giving them enough credit. But to be fair, we called them against Optic. Now, we didn't call them to beat Optic, but we did call them to do well against Optic to make that a competitive match. I don't know. I'm probably going to stay away from this one. Maybe I'll bet a hard point spread here, but I'm probably staying away from everything else here.
Yeah, boy, I hate doing this, but I really like Vegas, which is insane because anytime my model is pointing me in the direction of one of these elite teams, I usually just blindly take that. Oh, you think FaZe is a minus 2.5, minus 138 is a great price. Like, sure, I'll take that. They're FaZe. Obviously, they could 3-0 anybody, especially Vegas. What have Vegas done? They won their first match last weekend. But here's my thing, Robert. So my model, for the rest of the season, my model is going to be way, way too far behind on Falcons. And the interesting thing is that, like, Falcons are in some ways, like, getting worse in my model despite showing a lot of improvements, because they have really, I don't want to say they've been bad in the modes that they were somewhat competitive at, but they've been a little worse than what they were as the old team. Like, their Search and Destroy has not won a game yet, but they've been to 2 round 11s. I want to put that out there. Those can go either way at times. And I think as you get more reps with a lineup, like, your Search will start to come through. Their Control, a 3-0 loss against Surge, a 3-0 loss against Miami. We think those teams are good. But still, like, your Control didn't even show up against those teams. Then you get a 3-2 win against Optic last week. Again, I know Optic, very hot and cold. What does that even mean? It means that Vegas at least are getting better in Map 3. They've been close in a couple Map 2s, and they've won 4 straight hard points. Like, and 3 of them were blowouts. Like, Vegas Falcons are pretty live, I think, to win any map against FaZe. And if you do the math on a team plus 2.5 even money, which is what Vegas is right now, that's about, if you set Vegas as 20% to win Map 1, Map 2, and Map 3, that's pretty much a 50-50 if they would win one of those maps, because that's how math works. If you make them a 25% favorite in Map 1, Map 2, Map 3, all of a sudden that even money is looking like great value. And that's where I'm at with this team. Like, I think they're very big underdogs to win any of those maps, but I'm going to give them like a 25% shot somewhere in there. 25%, maybe a 30% shot based on how they've looked. And again, one thing to remember with FaZe is that they haven't been great lately. They only have 1 win so far this qualifier period. They lost 3-1 to Miami. Doesn't look great. They did beat a Royal Ravens team 3-1, but their hardpoint win was down to the wire. They lost to Game 1 against Ravens, which is a little concerning as well. And then they started this qualifier period losing to Toronto in a Game 5. Their map wins there were a round 11 in Search and a 3-2 win in Control. They lost both hard points. Like, FaZe are in a sneaky slide right now, and I think they're being priced like they're still the FaZe of old. And maybe they are. Maybe they completely rebound and just treat Falcons like they're garbage and win this very quickly. But I've been very impressed with this Falcons lineup. And yeah, I'm giving them a 25% shot in Map 1, 2, and 3 in my head. I know my model's not going to do that. But as long as they're there, the plus 100 is good value. So hopefully they can come through and at least win one map. But yeah, I don't know. I also just want to cheer for Falcons for the rest of the year.
No, it's not wrong. I agree with that. Does FaZe has a game before this, right? I think.
No. They have one on Sunday, though, which we'll get to.
And Vegas doesn't play anybody before this either. This is their first map of the weekend, right? Yeah. Maybe. We'll see what the number is. Yep. Maybe this number moves a bit. If we got plus 2.5 at plus 120, maybe I'd be on board with that. I do agree we probably are underestimating Vegas. The question just is to what extent and at what number are we willing to put it in. I think they're probably a bit undervalued in the hard point from where they are from here. But outside of that, we'll see. Maybe I'll find myself in a way to put something on this game. We'll have to see. We'll see. Anyways, moving on to Sunday now. Boston minus 200 on the money line versus Falcons again, plus 150. Boston minus 1.5 plus 120. Vegas plus 1.5 minus 163. Boston just a minus 138 in the hard point, a minus 163 in the Search, and then a minus 188 in the Control. And both of our models like Boston, but again, I think it's the same issue as the last match where we're probably a little too slow on Vegas. The thing is, the question is, are the books priced in that like Optic is better than people think, so that therefore when Vegas beats Optic, then all of a sudden people are like, oh, Vegas is better than people think. Is that what they're doing? It's a possibility. I'm not sure exactly, but
yeah, So that's a good question. I think it's at least safe to say, let's just assume Optic are, right, they're 2-2 this qualifier stage. They had 2 nice wins a couple weeks ago, 2 pretty bad losses last week. They're not what they were at the start of the season, so let's not put them up in the top 3 or 4. But they've clearly rebounded from where they were a couple months ago where they couldn't win a map. So maybe, like, I think Optic are still in that, like, 6th, 7th, 8th range. And Falcons just beat them pretty easily. And, oh, by the way, Falcons pushed Miami to the brink, won both hard points in that series. And we, like, at least I am very, like, I'm not in on Miami because I'm still too afraid to take them. But I am impressed with the new Miami lineup. And Vegas Falcons really put up a good fight against them as well. I just think the market is scared to, like, fully buy in and say Falcons are like a top 8 team, which maybe they're not, but they're at least showing signs that they're closer to, like, 8th, 9th, 10th than 11th or 12th. And I think the market is still just, yeah, that was a nice win and all, but Vegas are still probably worse than LAG, or maybe LAG and them are on par. And I'm just like, you got to act quick on Falcons, I think. The thing that's weird about this one is that I like Boston too. Yeah, I'm impressed with Boston's control coming around a little bit. And I just think it's very telling that Boston are a very respectable, good team in hardpoint, and they're only minus 138 to win map 1. That's crazy. I didn't think we'd see a world where this season where Falcons are only plus 100 to win map 1, and they've rattled off 4 straight. If you beat Optic, why couldn't you beat Breach? I totally buy into that. So I think you can make a case for both teams. Boston have had impressive results as well. Falcons have clearly rebounded nicely. Minus 200 versus plus 150 feels about right. I definitely would prefer to have Boston winning this series. Like, I think that's the more likely outcome. But, man, Falcons with this new lineup have looked pretty good, and they've been looking better match after match. So, yeah, another one where I'm just fascinated to watch. I know my model's saying Boston, maybe that is the case, but I still think Falcons are good enough to put up a fight, and maybe if they can find a little search success or flip these round 11s to wins rather than losses, yeah, I don't see why Falcons couldn't start in the winner's bracket. It's going to take a lot, but, man, I don't know. I'm drinking that Falcons Kool-Aid.
If they start in the winner's bracket, that'd be really fun. Do you know how fun that would be? So fun.
That'd
if
be
they
crazy.
Did actually.
Yeah,
so fun. We'll see though. That's to be determined for another day. Sunday match 2, another match between what was it? Originally, if you had set the line for this match at the beginning of the year, it would have been like minus 120 each way, and it's not minus 120 each way now.
Yeah.
FaZe minus 700 on the money line. Optic plus 400. FaZe minus 2.5 plus 162. Optic plus 2.5 minus 225. FaZe minus 300 in the hard point, minus 250 in the search, and minus 350 in the control. Yeah, give me FaZe minus 2.5. I don't believe in this Optic team. I think this FaZe team is better, a lot better in every way. And maybe Optic can do something in hard point. Maybe they can do something in control, but my model definitely doesn't think they can do anything in search. And your model kind of agrees on that front as well. Yeah.
FaZe minus 2.5 at plus 162. I get it. I totally get it, and you can absolutely make a case for that. I think you can also make a really good case that Optic moneyline is a smart play as well. Like, I think those two, even though they're complete opposites, are both justifiable. And you could actually pair those up if you wanted to. Either FaZe come out, rebound from what they showed last week, and Optic kind of look the same, and this is over real quick. It's one of those classic FaZe versus Optic where we're hyped for it, and then it just ends super quickly. Or maybe Optic have a little rebound. FaZe, again, like I said, sneaky, not so great the last couple weeks. And Optic look more like what they did in week 1 of this qualifier period. And maybe it takes a while for them to get the win, but maybe they show up and get the win. I don't know. It's another fascinating matchup because every match with Optic, it feels like that. But yeah, no, like FaZe could for sure come out, easily win, and you get plus 162 if they come out and just speed run this thing. So yeah, like I get where the prices are. My model is pretty in line with everything. And I agree. Yeah, it's funny. Like my model is saying Optic are 30-ish% to win map 1, and they're about 25% to win map 2 and map 3, which is the case I was making for Vegas in their match versus FaZe the day prior. Is if they're 25, 30%, something like that, the plus 2.5 at even money looks great. This plus 2.5 for Optic is minus 225. I don't know. I don't know what I'm missing here with Optic and where they're at, but yeah, I just think you go FaZe minus 2.5 or you go Optic money line. Nothing else makes sense besides those two bets. And yeah, if you like FaZe, go for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, last match of the weekend: Carolina versus Thieves. This could be determined. This could determine the number 1 seed possibly if Miami lose something here. Thieves minus 600 on the money line. Ravens plus 350. Thieves minus 2.5 plus 162. Ravens plus 2.5 minus 225. Thieves minus 400 in the hard point, 150 in the search, and then minus 500 in the control. Yeah, my model's pretty ambivalent on this one. I think this one's just a watch for me. Maybe it likes Carolina a little bit in the hard point. And Thieves' hard point has been a little soft recently. So maybe I'll give it a nice little Carolina spread there in the hard point. But outside of that, I don't really see much value either way on this one. There's a lot of minus 2.5s this week. And I think I'm mostly staying away from some of them, with the exception of maybe some of the Vegas ones. What do you have on this one? Do you see any value here, or are you staying away from this one?
Yeah, this one's tricky. I think it's a stay away. This is Ravens' only match of the weekend. They're sitting at 2-2 in the qualifier period. So this could literally be like you win, you get a winner's bracket spot, and if you lose, maybe not, or maybe you're in a weird tiebreaker with a couple other teams and you leave it to chance. Yeah, and Thieves should pick up that win versus LAG. So for them, this is probably just like if you're Thieves, are you the 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed? Where do you fall in that pecking order? But for Carolina, this is huge. But yeah, I don't know. That roster move, we'll see how it shakes out. We know Vivid is not on the team, at least this weekend. And we think Rex is coming in. Maybe that helps them in their respawns, which would be helpful in a series like this where Thieves are so good. But you don't want to take a step back and search and destroy at the same time. Man, I don't know. It's tough to figure out. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. This is a really tough one for me. And I'm just going to sit back and not make a pick. But yeah, Thieves, we've seen this match a couple times this year. Thieves have dominated those matches. So, I don't know, maybe some new blood for Ravens will at least give them some hope that they can push this series far at the very least. And then if you can push it far, if you can get to that game 5, like, if you're Ravens, like, even with a new lineup, you're still probably going to have confidence that you can win that search and destroy, even against a good team like Thieves. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but hopefully this is better than what we've seen from these two teams in the past, because those were just blowouts.
Hopefully it's a more competitive game there on Sunday night. Moving on to our picks for this week. I've got Miami moneyline versus Minnesota. I like that one. I do Cloud9 plus 1.5 versus Vancouver. And then I'm going with FaZe minus 2.5 versus Optic. What are your picks for this week?
Yeah, so I've got a double whammy bet against Cloud9. I think they're probably going to lose both of those series against Boston and against Vancouver. If that is the case, I think at least one of those is a 3-1 or 3-0, if not both. So yeah, I'm just out on Cloud9 for now, and I know our number 2 picks are at odds with each other, so we'll see how that shakes out. The fun thing is they're both minus 120 as well, so it's a perfectly dead even line on that one. But yeah, it's more just I gotta wait until Cloud9 show me something in the respawns to get me back in on them. And yeah, I made that case for Vegas against FaZe. I think they've got a pretty good shot to at least force the map 4, just given what they've looked like lately with the new team and a little sneaky, not so good stretch for FaZe the last couple weeks. So maybe Vegas can capitalize on that. I don't know if they're going to win. I doubt they'll win, but maybe they can make it interesting versus one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah. And the combined model plays for this week, we've got a lot of them here, actually. Yeah, you've got Toronto Moneyline minus 1.5 map 2 on Friday. Cloud9 map 3, LAG map 3, and then LA Thieves map 2 there on Friday. You've got Cloud9 Moneyline plus 1.5 map 3 there on Saturday, Minnesota map 1, LAG map 1, Toronto map 2, and then Thieves Moneyline minus 2.5 map 2 there against Vegas on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Boston Moneyline minus 1.5 map 1 map 2, and then Phase map 2. Those are our combined model plays for this week. Last but not least, that is it for Major 3. The qualifiers. We will be back next week for Major 3 preview. And I think we're going to record this. It'll be out on Wednesday for sure. We're probably going to record this on Tuesday, I think, next week. That's the current plan. So we'll record this on Tuesday, and then we'll have it out for you guys out by Wednesday of next week. Other than that, have a good week. Have a happy Easter, everyone. And yeah, we'll see you next week for Major 3. See you, everybody.